We have a great group of speakers here tonight, and I'm so pleased at the audience as well. Our moderator, speaking of a great group of speakers, our moderator is someone I've known for a long time, and I'm sure many of you have too here in Cleveland, as well as folks in Columbus who've worked in state government. Tom Chema has had a distinguished career in business and government and law. Most recently, he was president of Hiram College for 12 years? 11 years, and did a number of really innovative things on campus with renewable energy and energy efficiency. There are so many great things happening at our colleges and universities, and Hiram was right up there at the top. In government, he served as chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, so he is certainly well-versed in energy policy. He also served as chair of the Ohio Lottery Commission. He started his career as an attorney with Arter and Haddon, and he now is chairman of his consulting firm, the Gateway Group, Ohio. And Gateway Group, many of you would know, was the developer of the Quicken Loans Arena and the stadium, the Indian Stadium. So he has had a great influence on the general Cleveland area. And we are just very pleased that he's here with us tonight. And Tom, if you would like to join me here and start the program. And he's going to be, really tough on time, too, aren't you?
I am. Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Great Lakes Science Center. Jane and her colleagues have done a marvelous job of organizing this, which is the first stop on the tour, a very important tour for Ohio's energy future. There are going to be stops throughout the state of Ohio. You are the inaugural of that, and we are really excited about the panelists that are joining us this evening, and the opportunity to keep alternative energy, energy efficiency, demand-side management, all of these important areas in the forefront of the thinking of people throughout our state. This is an opportunity to expand a constituency for these vital areas of our economic development and growth. This forum is designed to engage Ohio's citizens, business, community leaders, people from throughout the state to help develop an energy vision that will lower cost of energy, create jobs, improve public health, and the environment. So thank you so much for being here. Now, Jane asked me to be the moderator because of that stint I had as chairman of the Public Utilities Commission. As a regulator tonight, instead of regulating energy, I'm going to regulate time. We have a very, very tight time frame. So each of our panelists is going to speak for about 5 minutes, and then we will have an opportunity at the conclusion of the panelists' remarks for questions. And as Jane said, you can register your questions either in writing on the comment card, at the station to your left, or we have 2 microphones, and please use the microphones so that we can appropriately record the comments. Okay, so that's the format for the evening, and again, I will reiterate, you don't have to run out at 7:29. The garage is going to be open till 8, and we'll try to make sure that everyone is able to get their vehicle out. So, to begin, our first panel is the business of clean energy, creating jobs, reducing costs, and driving innovation. Will the panelists please come forward, take a seat? Dennis Bollinger of Energy Developments, Inc., Al Frasz, Dovetail Solar and Wind, Steve Peplin, Talan Products, Andrew Watterson from Key Bank, and Laura Nicholson from Echogen. You have their formal bios in the materials. So, Dennis, you're on. And would you like to have, why don't we use these? Okay. You can stay at your seats and we'll have this. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Bollinger. I'm Vice President of Development for Energy Developments. Energy Developments is a company that builds, owns, and operates landfill gas to electricity facilities. We have, in the state of Ohio, 3 facilities generating about 55 megawatts of renewable power. Our largest facility is a 27 megawatt facility that's located just outside of Lorain. The landfill itself is owned by Republic Services. The power that we generate from this facility is sold to AMP Ohio. The process of generating electricity through trash decomposition is relatively simple. The landfill owner will put in a gas collection system inside the decomposing waste. That gas is then collected, it's shipped to us, where we then process it by taking out certain constituents and then using it as a fuel source for our very large engines. These are very long-term projects. We typically enter into agreements with the landfill owner that are, in many cases, 35 to 40 years in length. Typically, we sell our electricity to the utilities on 10 to 20-year contracts. So when we come into one of these facilities, we're there for a very, very long time. The landfill gas to electricity projects provide the utilities also with a very consistent and what they typically refer to as a base load supply source. Landfill gas is generated on a 24/7 basis. It has to be controlled by the landfill owner. So we use it on a 24/7 basis, and therefore the utility can count on us no matter what the weather conditions might be at the time. Energy Developments came to Ohio about 15 years ago. We came in the early 2000s and built 4 facilities, and we invested in Ohio about $55 million at that point. Over the years, we have continued to operate those facilities, and then in 2008, when the Senate Bill 221 was passed, we looked at Ohio as an opportunity and a friendly state where it appeared to us at least that renewables were acceptable and were something that the state was looking for. Because of Senate Bill 221, we came back in and invested another $55 million in expansions of our existing facilities. So now we have $105 million in plants operating in this state. We also have about 22 full-time employees working at those facilities, and at almost any day there will be anywhere between 15 and 20 contractors that will be on our sites performing various functions. We spend about $5 million a year in operating costs here in the state. That's money that stays directly stays within the state. Besides the economic benefit, there's also, of course, the environmental benefit. We take an otherwise wasted resource and we put it and use it for a beneficial use. And the landfill gas is made up primarily of methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. Well, we take that and we actually destroy that. So there is a significant benefit from the activity that we do. As Vice President of Development for the company, it's my job to find investment opportunities that our company can make that give us the returns that we have to have. When we look at opportunities in states, we look at a number of things. Obviously, we look at the resource that's there. We look at the opportunity to sell the electricity. We also look at the legislative climate. What we experienced here in Ohio last year has given us cause to stop and look at, if this could happen in Ohio at this point, is there something else that could happen in the future that could be detrimental to our existing facilities? Well, it's just one of those things that we have to look at when we're considering building a new project. It adds additional risk to that project, and risk can sometimes be a project killer. We're sort of a real-world example, I think, of what Senate Bill 221 was supposed to do. We looked at this as an opportunity to make investment in Ohio, to help Ohio become energy diverse, and to add jobs to the state of Ohio. We did that. We remain concerned going forward that is Ohio a good friendly state to build renewable projects in? We're going to be here, no doubt. Whether or not we expand is still open. But we think Ohio could be a leader in the U.S. in renewable energy projects, and we certainly hope that that is the future for Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for the substantive comments, and your timing is great. Every other speaker, keep that in mind. Al.
If that was 5 minutes, I'm great. My name's Al Frasz. I'm the president of a company called Dovetail Solar and Wind, and we're one of the older and larger companies that design and install renewable energy systems. We don't do the large-scale wind turbines. We do mid-size and smaller wind turbines, but we do just about any size solar system, and we do both solar electric, which is the main one most people know, which is called photovoltaic, and then we also do solar thermal. And so we do all three technologies, and we have in Ohio here, we've expanded. I got involved in the company. We were all of the firms that were doing renewable energy, solar type projects and wind were very small in Ohio in the 1990s and the first half of the 2000s. I got involved with the company in 2006, and at that time we were there was one person who started the company and a couple of part-time employees, and at this point in time, I say we had gotten as high as 40 plus employees, and unfortunately, as the comment the speaker before me, when some of the state legislature people start talking about pulling back on renewable energy in Ohio, we saw a big downturn in some of the outside investment projects on the larger scale, and so we had to scale back. We're down to about 25 plus employees right now. But like I say, we still have made a major impact in growing the business here. We've installed, I think, on the order of about 10.2 megawatts, or maybe something that you can more get your hands around. What's a megawatt and how much is that? But we've installed over 40,000 solar modules just since 2006. So that's a lot of work and a lot of labor that goes into that. That's over 350 systems. We've probably done about 250 or so for homeowners in Ohio, and another 100 and some for businesses and municipalities and government organizations and such too. So some of the names that you'd recognize, household names, we installed a 318 kilowatt system on a Walmart up in Eastlake. We did an 85 kilowatt system for a McDonald's restaurant in Garfield Heights. We built canopies over the parking area, and it's one of the greenest McDonald's in the country right now. We did something that everybody's near and dear. One of the most popular ones, we did the Mitchell Brothers ice cream, their new factory over on West 25th Street. We put solar on the roof of that, so the ice cream is getting partially chilled by solar. And we're real excited. We just signed a contract a couple months ago now, and we're going to do a very large project over in Cleveland Heights for Motor Cars Honda. We're going to put solar canopies over the new car parking area there, and so you'll be able to extend their showroom, and you'll be able to shop for your cars underneath the solar canopy with LED lighting and so on, and quite exciting stuff. So, universities have been a major adopter of the technology for many years, and so we're pleased that we've worked with people like Case Western Reserve University, Cuyahoga Community College here in town, people like Mountain Union College and so on. So we've done a number of that way. And then municipalities, we're seeing a big influx. Not so much in Northeast Ohio. We did a few up here. We did a solar on the Mayfield Village Police Station. We've just got a contract now with the Ashtabula Metropolitan Housing Authority. We're going to put solar on their facility. We've done some for Cleveland Housing Network and so on. But we've done other ones in other parts of Ohio. We've done major systems for water and treatment and wastewater treatment, sewage plants and stuff like that. We've done a number of large systems that way. Those are the type of projects that have unfortunately have kind of stalled right now because of Senate Bill 310 and what's happened with the investment climate. Outside investors are looking in where they can put their money, and they all love solar projects, and they're booming all over the country, but when they see projects in Ohio getting threatened potentially by legislation stuff too, it's been really tough to get the large projects to find investors to put into those. So again, the residential business has been booming. We're doing 2 to 4 systems a week on the residential side now, and we're doing some of the commercial stuff. I mentioned motor car stuff, but the larger investor-owned projects are basically stalled right now. We're hoping to get a few of those going. I think the impact we've had outside of just the direct jobs we do, like I said, we've probably spent over $12 million in payroll just in the last few years here, but we also bought a lot of material too from Ohio-based and American suppliers. We go out of our way to only buy American-made modules and inverters and such like that, and we've purchased at least 25 million, I think, of American-made products, which then of course support additional jobs at the factories in just in the last couple of years. So I think overall, the message is that solar is very viable. It's real. It's one of the fastest growing industries on the planet. It has been for the last 3 or 4 years. It works in Ohio. There's a number of other firms and such, but like I say, I think we've got a little bit of a hurdle and obstacles that have been put in our path, but the inevitable is going to go forward because the cost of solar has plummeted in the last couple of years. Modules that I was paying $4.50 to $5 a watt as recently as 2006, 2007 are down now in the 80-some cents or 70-some cents a watt. And so that's making solar much more economical in spite of any roadblocks that someone at the State House may put in front of us. It's going to happen. So I think it's probably 5 minutes. Right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Steve.
I'm going to have plenty of extra time if anybody wants some. I'm Steve Peplin. I'm the CEO and founder of Talan Products. We're one of these American manufacturers, and I'm so happy that you buy American. We've predominantly made parts for the building products industry. So years ago, I thought this was going to be a perfect fit. We're up on all these big flat roofs, manufacturing the stamped metal parts for companies like Firestone and Gencor and Carlisle, all the Johns Manville, all the major roof system manufacturers. So we started looking at the solar industry. The company's 28 years old, but we started looking at the solar industry seriously about 8 years ago. And you go to the solar shows, and it was the Wild West, and it was a great thing, and everything was made out of metal. All the racking systems, all the not the modules themselves and not the wires and the inverters, but everything else is the kind of stuff that we make. The grounding clamps, clamps that go under the module, the module clamps that hold the module to the rails, and all the little stamped brackets. That's our stuff. And it was just a great industry to be a part of, and my company was a high-growth company anyway, even before we got into the solar. But the crux of my whole point is here that the solar is the fastest growing part of our high-growth company. And it's created a lot of jobs, a lot of good jobs, a lot of engineering jobs. Our press operators are highly paid. We invest a lot in our workforce. That's about it.
Oh, you're keeping us really on schedule. Thank you. Andrew.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for the time. No, I won't. I'm Andrew Watterson. I'm head of sustainability for Key Bank. For those of you that don't know Key's headquartered here in Cleveland. We operate in 12 states across from Alaska to Maine. We have about 14,000 employees and revenues just north of $4 billion a year. So what am I doing here? Key finances the projects. We see this as part of our organizational purpose to help our clients and communities thrive. Key puts all of its sustainability efforts within a group called the Corporate Responsibility Group, and that's our sustainability efforts, our diversity of inclusion, so that's supplier diversity and workforce diversity, our Community Reinvestment Act compliance and our community development lending, and our philanthropy, the Key Foundation. So what we're doing here is we actually have a pretty large utility groups that finances large-scale or utility-scale wind and solar projects across the United States. As at the end of 2013, we had roughly $1.2 billion invested in wind and solar and powering about 5,200 megawatts of wind and solar across the United States. And that powers a little over 1.5 million households based on kind of an average U.S. household. But we also finance energy efficiency projects, small-scale wind and solar, so retail through our retail bank, and in our community bank with small businesses and middle market customers, so mid-sized businesses everything from lighting to energy efficiency, building envelope, HVAC, and wind and solar projects. So we follow our clients where they're investing. We seek out opportunities to invest in the space and see it as especially with solar, it's a rapidly growing industry and an area that we're very interested in. And so we're excited to see projects, we're excited to see this type of energy here in Ohio, and interest in making more investments in renewable energy and energy efficiency in Ohio. In Ohio, we have roughly 200 projects across Ohio that are, again, mostly small scale or mid-size investments for renewable energy and energy efficiency. So that's it.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Nicholson. I work for Echogen Power Systems. We are a company that is developing waste heat recovery technology. I'm an engineer, so it's going to be at this point that I have to try to hold it in and not bore you all to tears with what I think are the fascinating details of all of the thermodynamic reasons that our technology is so interesting. But all you really need to know is it takes heat and generates electricity from it, and it's doing it in a slightly new and innovative way. So we've spent the past few years building an engine, testing it, refining it. If you've been following Echogen over the past few years, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with us, we've been around these kinds of events for a while, championing the clean energy efforts in Ohio. But we just completed that test program a few months ago, so it's a big milestone for us. That's kind of where we are now, working hard to bring the technology into the commercial pilot phase. So we, as I said, are kind of have been around this Ohio clean energy kind of scene for a while. In fact, recently our CEO, Phil Brennan, who is not here today, obviously, he couldn't make it, but he recently wrote an op-ed in Crain's Cleveland. I think it was titled something like From Rust Belt to Green Belt. And he kind of laid out the narrative that I'm sure we're all familiar with, that manufacturing jobs in this region have been leaving the area. And he proposed that, you know, we can turn that around. We can, if we make a concentrated effort, it's not going to happen on its own. We have to focus on it, work on it, create the right kind of policy environment with things like the RPS that, as we know, has kind of been put on hold. I guess it's the official term for it now. And things like the Youngstown manufacturing incubator that's been developed. Those kinds of things can really turn things around, take those manufacturing employees, retrain them for clean energy jobs. And what's interesting about what Echogen does is our system is really well suited to bring some more benefits to the manufacturing community. So a great example of a really, really good application for our technology is in a steel mill. And steel is a very energy intensive, a very heat intensive process. It takes a lot of heat to make steel, but unfortunately you can't just give exactly the amount that you need. You're always going to have some left over that's wasted. It's like scrap metal, but nobody goes and throws away scrap metal. They know that it's valuable, you can recycle it and get some use out of it. So we're kind of like the scrap heat dealers of the industrial world. We can capture that excess heat from the steel process and generate useful electricity from it. And so when you're able to provide that benefit to a manufacturing facility, and I use the example of steel, but this is true in cement, chemicals, plastics, all kinds of manufacturing industrial facilities, you can save those facilities money on their energy bills. You know, there has actually been a trend of manufacturing sites moving back to the US after the trend of outsourcing in previous decades. And so with our efficiency, we can help those facilities improve their operations, save money on their energy bills, put that into expanding their production maybe, hiring more workers, just generally improving the economic competitiveness of all those heavy manufacturing facilities that this region is known for. So we can kind of support the clean energy economy in that way, in this indirect way, back through all those manufacturing jobs. And that's in addition to the jobs actually producing the clean energy. I have one of those jobs. It's pretty nice. And I am actually not even from Ohio. I am from New Jersey. I migrated into Ohio for a job, which is kind of against the flow of traffic and that narrative that I mentioned of jobs leaving the region. But we think that we can start to turn that around. And we're a company of mostly engineers that get really excited about the cool technology we make in a nerdy sort of way. But we're also excited because we know we can bring these benefits to the community in this environment, in terms of environmental impact and economic impact. And we're really proud of those things as well.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks to this wonderful panel. Let's give them a round of applause. I think this is a unique situation for me. I don't think I've ever been associated with a panel before where the panelists were not only on time, but shorter. So we actually have about 5 more minutes, 7 minutes to be exact, more for questions than we thought we were going to. If you have a question, please come up to the front of the room. There are 2 microphones, one on either side. And this is sort of like the City Club. Questions, please, or brief comments, but not your own speech. Not an advertisement for your company or yourself, but a comment, a question, and we will see how much we can accomplish in the next few minutes. As our questioners are coming to the microphone, one of the things that I observed from this panel was the scope of what is included in clean energy or alternative energy. Because the people sitting at this panel represent a wide range, not only of technologies, but the kinds of people who are providing those technologies, the actual skill set. So first question to you, and anyone who would like to grab onto it, is the workforce in Ohio prepared to provide you with the skill set that you need in order to provide your product, your service, your contribution to this alternate energy economy?
Yes, very definitely. In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention was the fact that Energy Developments has relocated its operational facility here in Ohio, and we are able to draw from a lot of other adjacency type industries such as engineering, mining. Those types of things have been very helpful to us. And again, our chief operating officer is located here. All of our technology people are located here. We find this a very good environment for recruiting employees.
Good. Other comments from other panelists? Yes, Al.
Yeah, we've actually been very fortunate in the last few years. About 5-6 years ago, we had to do a lot of on-the-job training because there weren't that many people that were skilled in designing and installing solar systems. And fortunately, most of the community colleges, at least the major ones, Cuyahoga Community College up here, Lorraine Community College has done some, Zane State, Cincinnati State, down in Washington, down in Marietta and so on, have all put out some very good programs now, and so they're turned out graduates now that we're able to either bring on as interns or actually that are getting certifications beforehand. So we're able to be much more demanding of the people that we hire now and actually looking for people with experience and training now. We're finding those people very much so that's been good.
Excellent. First question from the audience. Sir, you want to give your name? And
Sure. Hello, panel. My name's Eric Ritter, and I'm really excited to hear you guys talk about these really specific real-world examples of clean energy projects and technology solutions here. Of course, we, even though there have been some successes, there's still a long way to go. We still get almost all of our electricity from burning coal in the state. And I'm really interested in, specifically, we talked about the landfill, gas recovery, waste heat recovery, some of the distributed solar and wind. When we're talking about these technologies, what's the sort of the potential, if policies were aligned right to, to hit some of those, like the RPS standard, if it wasn't frozen, what's the potential for your technology solution to help us actually hit some of those goals?
Everybody hears about these great big utility scale projects that are 400 megawatts or 200 megawatts or something like that, but we do a lot of utility scale. We're in all the different segments, residential, commercial, and utility scale of solar, so thermal and photovoltaic systems. Most of the ones that we do, though, are 10, 20, 30, 50 megawatts. They're not monstrous, huge front page news, but they're all over the country. We do them every week. We're shipping stuff out. I don't know if that's exactly
Other
what you want.
comments?
Right now, we are actually looking at 6 potential landfill gas electricity projects here in the state of Ohio. Those projects, when built out, will generate about 50 megawatts of power. It's a capital investment of roughly $75 million with ongoing expenses of $3 to $5 million annually. That's the immediate potential. With landfill projects, as long as there are people, there are going to be landfills. So those projects will continue to present themselves from now until the end of time, essentially. But immediately, about 50 megawatts.
I'd just like to add that the menu of opportunities that you hear up here that I believe describes a lot of what we would likely see, a portfolio of a diverse set of power generation resources from small scale to utility scale that can help provide some of those solutions.
Next question.
Steve Bloomfield, Hostile International. Given the recent rollbacks by the PUCO and the state legislature for energy hog appliances like refrigerators, air conditioners, and that sort of thing, what's the current political climate in Columbus for support for this kind of green energy at the moment? Either from the legislature or the soon-to-be candidate for president governor.
Who wants to get in trouble?
Unfortunately, I think most people in the room know the answer to that. The political climate has been very discouraging in the last 6 months particularly, but really started about a year and a half ago. And unfortunately, I was looking for more leadership from our governor to basically corral some of the fringe elements of his party. I think the concern I have is that Ohio is really missing the boat, and I'm serious. Solar is, for example, and these other technologies are all very, very good as well too. I'm not trying to just, but very high growth industries right now. And if you contrast, okay, Ohio, when Governor Kasich came into office in 2010, Ohio was in the top 10 in solar in the country. Okay. We have fallen now. We're barely in the top 20. I think we're like 19th right now. At the same time, states like Georgia and North Carolina, which are certainly not, blue states, okay, they made policy decisions in 2010, particularly North Carolina, and they have had over $3 billion worth of investments have gone into North Carolina now, and they have drawn a number of manufacturing, research, and development jobs as well as the growth itself. Georgia, again, has done it because the utilities saw the benefit of doing it. You're seeing a lot of other states all around the country now that are doing this, and Ohio, as a businessman, I think every business person up here would say the same thing. We very much believe in measuring and making sure you're getting results for your investments that you make. I mean, that's the whole nature of business. If you don't do that in the long term, you lose. But there's no reason to. So I don't have a problem with anybody trying to determine his energy efficiency investments. Is our portfolio standard a good investment for Ohio, and studying that and getting real results back out of that by analyzing it. But there was no need to freeze it in order to do that. It'd be like, I told somebody, it's like Apple Computer deciding, well, how are iPads doing? Are we making money on that? Well, let's stop all sales of iPads for 2 years while we study it. It's just absurd to do that. And I think that gives you a little bit of, unfortunately, the climate we were in right now.
So, because as I said, we do waste heat recovery and we target industrial facilities, the potential customers that we're looking at, we're not looking at utility scale, these 400 megawatt systems. So we can go to an individual consumer and say, take a look at your energy bill and look at the solution that we can provide. It's going to help you reduce your energy costs. It's going to help you reduce your capacity payments based on the peak load that you see every year. It can have a significant benefit for them in that respect. And it's also going to give you some more reliability. If the grid goes down, you have some on-site generation. And that's something that we've seen throughout the country, actually, especially in light of some recent natural disasters, that various utility commissions in different states are trying to promote on-site generation because it provides grid stability. So we look at it as we're trying to bring this technology out there to the people who are maybe able to get some other benefits out of it, not just strictly, it is obviously an economic decision, but even without these incentives from the state or federal government, hopefully we can piecemeal get people to see that there are other advantages as well, and that's the way forward, at least in the short term, until hopefully we can, I don't know what to do about our politicians, but maybe someone else can figure that out.
Thank you, Laura. Great comment, because this isn't all just about what utility companies do or don't do. It's also about what business in general can do to maximize the assets that they have and to utilize those assets in this sustainable way. So thank you for that really good comment. Next question.
My name is Ann Hammond, and I understand that the utility companies are wanting to charge for the use of reselling, or the use of the transmission lines for the people that resell their excess energy to the utility company. That could be solved with storage of some sort at the site, and I was wondering how close are we to good storage batteries?
I'm not sure that we have anyone on this panel, but we do have others here who
It's a very
are
astute
involved
comment.
with
I mean,
storage.
storage is the holy grail right now that's out there as far as how do you store energy, particularly electricity. Heat is a little easier to store. You can heat up some fluid and potentially keep it for some period of time if it's insulated. But electricity, historically, we have never stored it. It's always been, you use it or it's gone. And there have been some innovations coming, but it's been coming much slower than we'd like. All the electronics around it have gotten very good about being able to manage and use that storage effectively, and we're gradually seeing the costs come down. But you're seeing major companies, the people that Tesla Motors has just announced they're making a major battery plant that they're going to build. I think it's in Nevada, I believe is where it's at. But billion-dollar plant that they're putting in just to drive down the cost of storage for both electric vehicles as well as for backup and site power. So I think you're going to see some developments over the next 5 years, but it is a challenge right now.
Thank you, Al. I saw Herb Crowther in the audience, and Ann, you might want to find him and ask him about the innovative things that he is doing in this storage area. Next question.
Kathy Kowalski with Midwest Energy News. I have a two-part question for the panel. First, why do you believe the State House and Governor have been ignoring the positive impacts and the popular support for renewable energy and energy efficiency? And then second, there was talk about the investment economics that are needed for at least the larger scale projects. What ideas do you have for making those investment economics more attractive despite the legislature?
Great question. Who's on first? Okay, Al, you're the guy.
Why the legislature is doing what they're doing, I think it's for various reasons, okay? There's certainly some people that have a passion about, what they believe is free enterprise versus what other people would think free enterprise is, okay? They kind of forget all the investments that governments have made in other industries over the years, including the energy industry itself in Ohio. All those transmission distribution lines didn't get built strictly by private dollars. Okay, there was a lot of public money that went into that and encouragement, and of course, the utilities were monopolies for 100 years in Ohio before we started deregulating. So they could charge and ratepayers paid. Okay, and they built those coal plants and everything else that was in there. And the only other thing I'd say is somewhat follow the money a little bit about where certain campaign contributions came from and stuff, and you might find some interesting things to see there. How do we overcome it? Otherwise, I think the reality is the costs keep coming down, particularly in the industries that we represent. As they become more mainstream, the costs have been coming down dramatically. I talked a little bit about how much solar has come down, and it's becoming a point where it makes good economic sense for businesses and municipalities and government and so on to do this, because electric rates from the traditional fossil fuel generation have just gradually going up and up. Okay, you know, it's a little bit like your apartment. No, you know, your landlord doesn't cut your rent very often. Okay, it keeps going up because it's derived on scarce resources. That there's only so much fossil fuels on the planet, and the cost of burning those fossil fuels, we're all starting to recognize has real impact on the planet as well too, both in healthcare costs as well as viability of our water and so on. Okay, and I think that's going to drive the cost of alternative energy, making it much more attractive. So, you know, businesses and investors are looking for places where they're going to get a good return. And the beauty of things like renewable energy, particularly in solar, okay, is there's zero fuel costs. And zero fuel costs over 30 years has a tremendous impact on your ROI, okay, especially if the alternative is a fuel that you have no control of the cost, and natural gas is low right now, but it's going to go up and so on. So I think there's some attraction there.
I'll just speak briefly to the investment economics. You know, the investment economics works. In many respects works now. And on a lighting retrofit project, it works now. And it just depends on what your time horizon is for having that return on investment. But we can demonstrate that we can finance the projects and the investments work. Same thing with solar. The cost of installation and the cost of the products are coming down so dramatically that the investment, the economics do work. On large-scale utility projects, and you know, you need a buyer, you need a resource. So you need, if it's a wind project, you need a good wind resource. You need someone to have a purchase power agreement with to buy that electricity, and then it kind of follows the incentives and where the incentives are across the map of the United States. You know, in New York State and North Carolina, they have a 30% investment tax credit on top of the federal 30% investment tax credit. So, you know, a project in New York, it's easier to make it work because it has more significant incentives. But the investment, you know, the economics can work for a lot of these projects. And it's just having people that understand that and working on, you know, who's the buyer of its electricity. But on a building that you own, you can really find ways to find a positive return on investment pretty quickly.
I think the economic issues are tied directly to the political issues as well. I work for a company that is funded by a private equity fund, and we look at projects all over the world, and I compete for the capital to build my projects here in the United States with other people who are competing for capital in other parts of the world. If I have a project that looks attractive but has political risk in it, then I have a much higher return rate hurdle that I have to achieve than someone who is in a very stable political climate. So it's critical for those of us who work with private equity type funds who are bringing investors in who are trying to raise funds to build these types of projects. So in my view, they're tied hand in hand.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Randy Moyer, private citizen. I just have one question. Does methane burn clean?
Methane gas is the methane that, I assume you're talking about the landfill projects. Methane gas is the same gas that goes into your home. That's sold by the various producers and distributors. So yes, it does burn clean.
Is there any other question? We actually have time for one more. Yes, sir. Yep.
Well, any reductions of mercury are going to, and reductions of any of the constituents that are typically released through generation, are going to put more light, I think, on the renewable projects because, you know, frankly, in most cases, the renewables are using no fuel source in many cases, such as the wind and solar. So yes, it definitely will add. Yeah, I think so. I'll let.
Yeah, I think the thing that's happened over the years, okay, is the fossil fuel industry and the utilities around that they have basically externalized all their impact, and we've absorbed all that. So there's been no constraint initially at all about putting stuff up into the air. You just threw a smokestack up to get it away, so you didn't have to personally breathe it right where it was burning, but you threw it up in the air and forgot about it. Okay, and same thing with mercury, of course. And we're suffering the consequences, as you know, right here on Lake Erie. There's warnings out there for pregnant women not to eat, fish more than once a week and so on because of the mercury content. All that has had healthcare impact and environmental impacts on it. And I think if you truly look, and mercury is just one of those, but I think the current EPA rulings about trying to cut back greenhouse gases and carbon particularly are wise things to do if we really want to have a future in the planet and not cook the planet and leave it a mess for the generation behind us, okay? And I think, yes, that's going to have an impact because it's actually putting the burden that should have been there all along had we been wiser about it. If you burn something or put the stuff up in the air or the atmosphere or into the water, you ought to be responsible for keeping it clean or put it back the way it was. And I think that's one of the big attractions of renewable energy and wind and solar particularly is there's zero impact on the environment. I think so. I think that's.
I was wrong. There is one more question.
This is kind of a follow-up. Steve McPhee with Northeast Ohio Sierra Club. Zeroing in a little bit more on the financing, I think one of the failures that we have had as a society, and particularly in Ohio of late, is monetizing the decision process in the way that we get our energy. Could you speak to how we can do a better job of putting that forward to our politicians as to what the total costs of how we create our energy is and how we should steer that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
There's been a number of people much smarter than me that have put together, done these studies where they're actually looking at what the total cost structure is for various types of energy to produce. And in fact, interesting, one of the states in the country now, Minnesota, has actually put that into the legislative of code, and they are actually looking at what is the total impact and cost of various fuel structures. And if they haven't put a carbon tax per se, but they put a price on the cost of all the carbon that burning coal produces, okay, and add that into saying, okay, if you want to compare costs equally between various types of energy generation, you have to look at what are all the other extraneous costs that are coming out of that. And there's some work starting to happen on that, and there's been some really good papers that have looked at and said actually, what the cost of wind and solar and biomass and so on, and when you start looking at those cost sectors, again, we tend to come out very strong and well over there because just look at the math, 30 years of zero fuel costs. It just, you could say you get coal for 2 cents, okay, but it has an impact and you start compounding it, okay, and like I say, I do appreciate the fact that the financial institutions now are getting involved very heavily as well now too, because it is starting to make economic sense very strongly. We're seeing a lot of businesses doing it now. Homeowners is just really getting it, early adopters, and Key Bank has been a big partner of ours as far as financing things too. So that Honda motor cars one I just talked about, or motor cars Honda, Key Bank is one that financed it so we could get it together. We worked together on it to make it happen. So
Thank you. Let's thank this first panel. Excellent job.